And a pleasant good afternoon to all those in Irish Breakdown land. I am Vince D'Addario. I am the football analyst here at irishbreakdown.com. With me, as always, is Brian Driscoll. He is the publisher at irishbreakdown.com. And welcome to the show before the show.
Yes.
Because we do have a massive show tomorrow, and I am
there's an
so
update.
Fired up for it.
There's an update on that. So originally it was just going to be a mailbag. It's just going to be me and you talking for an hour.
Yeah.
And then I was going to bring Sean Davis on for an extra hour just to kind of have more time. But I decided, you know what? Let's have some fun with this. So we have several special guests lined up tomorrow. Right. And, of course, John Garcia from SL America will join us. But we have a couple, actually 3 former Notre Dame players lined up to join the show tomorrow. Excited about all of them. We'll have Sean Davis obviously be on the show once Vince has to leave. Got a friend of mine from the local media will be on to join us to talk a little bit about this Notre Dame Georgia Tech matchup. So we're going to have some fun tomorrow. So it's definitely not going to be your typical mailbag. It's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, for those that don't know, we are going to, for the first time, ask for super chats and ask for donations. My wife is creating today a donation page at Irish Breakdown. So those who don't want to give super chats or want to do it anonymously or want to give in a way that doesn't have 35% go to Google, there is going to be a way for you to do that. We'll have that up for most of the day tomorrow. And I've talked to the shelters that we're dealing with. They all have one need in common, and that is turkeys. So we're going to have an idea of what our numbers are tomorrow. So once the show's over, we'll get some work done. We'll kind of we'll tally the numbers up. And that's the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head out tomorrow and we're going to go buy some turkeys. So that is definitely something that we're going to do. But I'm excited about this. And we had a couple other former Notre Dame players that wanted to join, but they can't because they have practice and film sessions and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So we'll hope to be able to get them on for some future things like this. So I'm very excited about tomorrow's show. Yeah. Very excited about tomorrow's show.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun. And it's my hope is that it's the first of a tradition and of many that you and I do together, because I think it's so important that we share with what we have been blessed with, and this Irish Breakdown has been nothing but a blessing, and it's just fantastic, and that's what we do is we share it, and that's how it should be, and so I'm hoping this is the first of many opportunities for us to do this and to give back. So I'm really looking forward to it. But today we
Notre Dame, Georgia
Tech, baby. And Notre Dame has a game to play on Saturday, and it's their final home game of the season, which means it is senior day. And Notre Dame has come out flat on senior day in the past. And so, you want to make sure that is not the case. Now, Notre Dame has a lot to play for, and so I'm hoping that is not the case. But looking forward to it. It's a 2:30 kick. But today we are going to talk about the Notre Dame offense versus the Georgia Tech defense and what those matchups look like and where we think the advantage lies. This is our advantage show, our stacking up show. And so let's just dive right in, Brian. Let's talk about, this Georgia Tech defense overall. Watched a few games.
It ain't good.
It's not Virginia bad.
Overall. It's close. It's close. And the reason I say it's close is actually Georgia Tech's numbers are not good on defense, but they were actually a pretty solid defense early in the season. They had some good success early on. Of course, they had that performance against North Carolina that was just outstanding where they held North Carolina to, I think it was 22 points. They held Clemson to 14 points. Yeah. They lost to Northern Illinois, but they only gave up 22 points in that game. And then they played Pitt. And Pitt absolutely destroyed them, and they haven't been the same team since. They were 2-2. They had just beaten North Carolina. They were 6 points. I mean, they had every shot in the world to beat Clemson, and you're thinking, they only lost by a point to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois turned out to be a pretty good football team. And then Pitt beats them 52-21. They win the next week against Duke, who's awful. They won 31-27, and since then they lost 48-40 to Virginia, despite having an early lead, a 13-0 lead. They lost 26-17 to Virginia Tech, 33-30 to Miami, 41-30 to Boston College. And they're during this stretch, their defense has been abysmal. and it is really dragged their overall numbers down. So if you think about what I just said, they're 1-5 in their last 6 games. And during that stretch of 1-5 play, they've given up 37.8 points per game. So in the last 6 games, which is, they've played 10 games, that's 60% of their games.
Right.
Giving up almost 40 points a game.
And where you're coming from is where you're trending. I mean, it's not, they're not going to be able to flip a switch and then go back to what they were potentially at the beginning of the season. They're trending in the wrong direction.
Come to find out as we get more data, those weren't all that impressive performances. They did play Kennesaw State. Clemson's offense has been a mess all season. So, the North Carolina game was a bit of an aberration, but the things that they did to have early success, they just haven't been able to replicate for a host of reasons. It's a very unsound defensive system, in my opinion, Vince. It leads to a lot of I haven't watched a defense this season. Like when I watch Virginia, their guys just aren't very good, right? But you could beat them. You can have matchup advantages. When I'm watching Georgia Tech, every game I watch, there's like, oh, they just turned that guy loose. Oh, they just turned that guy loose. Oh, they just turned that guy loose.
Look, the most recent
really
game,
unsound.
The Boston College game. I mean, they just big played this defense over.
Phil Jurkovec put on an absolute clinic. He only threw 20 passes, Vince, and he completed 13 of them, which is about 65%. And he went for 310 yards. Plus, he had 3 touchdown runs, and it was 71 yards on 3 carries, and it was just read zones where just like he just takes off and
had some hard runs. I mean, he had some runs where he was getting hit and all that, but I mean, he was just sitting back in the pocket and just launching bombs. His
first touchdown to Zay Flowers, he gets drilled, but he just launches it down the middle of the field, and Zay's just down there with nobody on him.
And he literally, stopped and waited for the ball because he was that wide open.
Right, and it was deep, and Phil got hit. And then they had a deep corner route where Zay is wide open, and it was but it's like you could say the same thing about Virginia. It's a really unsound team. And we'll get into some specifics as we get into the pass game matchup, because a lot of it has to do with the pass game. Their run game's not very good either. It's just I think it's about the horses. Yeah. In the pass game, it's about them just not executing and having schemes and coverage assignment mistakes and things like that. But this is not a good defense. This is another game where Notre Dame has to come out and start fast and take it to them, because they do have some talent on offense. We'll have a different conversation on Thursday than we will on than we did today, because
that's what stood out
as you look at some of these games. I mean, like I said, they gave up 48 points against Virginia, but they scored 40.
Right.
They lost to Miami on the road, gave up 33 points, but they scored 30. They lost to Boston College by 11, but they scored 30. It was 30-31 at one point in time, I believe. And then Boston College scored the final 10 points. And that was with their backup quarterback in the game, because Jeff Sims was hurt. So they're going to have to put this Virginia Tech team away, or Georgia Tech team away early. And it's just another opportunity. And we said it several weeks ago, once they got through the Virginia Tech game, we said the schedule down the stretch is bad.
Right.
And it has actually gotten worse, because at the time, Virginia Tech had the best. Georgia Tech, I hope I don't say that this entire freaking show.
Virginia Tech doesn't even have a coach right now.
if Georgia Tech, at the time, once we got out of that Virginia Tech game, we looked at it and said, okay, the team with the best points per game average at that time was Georgia Tech.
Right.
It given up 27 points a game. In that time, their average has already gone up 3 points.
Yeah.
And so this is a matchup Notre Dame needs to dominate. This is a game. This is another opportunity for Notre Dame to have a convincing style points victory.
Yes.
And they need to do it. Virginia Tech's given up 30 a game. They've been giving up 37.8 the last 6 games. Notre Dame needs to match and surpass that mark if they're going to have the kind of impressive. Because here's the thing about this matchup, Vince. This is a bad team. This is a 3-7 football team, but you have 2 advantages going into this game. Number one, it's a chance for you to have a really convincing victory because Brian Kelly said something this past week, and he's right. We are playing our best football of the season right now.
Agreed.
He's 100% right.
Agreed.
Now, we could talk about, well, they don't play good team, but they're doing what you're supposed to do against bad teams, beating them convincingly. Not convincingly enough, in my opinion.
Agreed.
But you're beating them convincingly. You've now had 4 straight victories of at least 10 points. And what was it? The last 2 have been by over 20 points. You need another one where the committee's like, man, that Cincinnati game was a long time ago. Boy, this Notre Dame team is really steamrolling people. Here's the other part of this, though. A week after playing Notre Dame, Georgia Tech goes home and they play Georgia. So the committee right there is going to have a week apart how Georgia beat Georgia Tech and how Notre Dame beat Georgia Tech. Now, this isn't about saying Notre Dame's going to get in over Georgia Tech, over Georgia.
No,
what
not
it
at
is
all.
saying, however, because if
It's a
Georgia
data
loses
point.
the SEC title game, they're still going to be in over Notre Dame, and they should. They've got a great resume.
Yes.
The point, however, is that you need to start looking like a playoff team. And playoff teams are going to do certain things to inferior opponents. That's just go look at the numbers, right? And so Notre Dame's going to have a chance to say, well, yeah, Georgia beat them, 30-3, but we beat them 49-17, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that Notre Dame needs to be able to say as just another late season data point,
Exactly.
And then again, you're going to play Stanford that same weekend. Stanford played Oregon. Yeah. So again, you've got two opportunities in these last two games to really smack two struggling, reeling opponents. Georgia Tech is 1-5 in their last 6 games. Stanford's lost 5 in a row. You need to put them out of their misery early and keep your pedal to the metal the entire game. Now, that could mean putting your backups in the third quarter. If you're up 31-3, okay, fine. Let them run the offense.
Let run the offense.
Don't
just
our
sit
thing,
there. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
People need to understand. And if you have chances to go for the jugular in the second quarter, early third quarter, mid third quarter, take it. Absolutely. Don't take your foot off the gas, okay? Because you don't taking your foot off the gas is something that the people need to understand. That should never happen, ever. And because it's a mentality. Now, how you don't run it up is you put Tyler Buckner in the game, then you put Drew Pine in the game, you put Rocco Spindler in the game, you put John Dirksen in the game, you put Zeke Correll. You get your backups.
There's going to be 100 guys dressed, and they're going to want to get in, walk on seniors.
And that's great. And have your walking, bring your seniors off the field.
Right.
So, but when you put those guys in, let them run the offense.
Absolutely.
Let them go put a couple touchdowns on the board. And that's, if you put your backup defensive players in the game, let them attack. So that to me is what we need to see from this offense in this game.
Completely agree with you. There needs to be a dominating performance from start to finish. You can't leave any doubt on the field. There's, regardless of what the committee says, there's going to be recency bias. I mean, it's going to be, what have you done for me lately, right? And so it's going to be important that Notre Dame does what they need to do in this game at home and then on the road as well. Because, again,
great opportunity.
The issue with Notre Dame not being in a conference championship, right, is their last opportunity to impress anybody is next week. And we'll talk about that more next week. But you're sitting on that performance for like 2 weeks. So it's important that you leave a good taste in the mouth of the people that are making these decisions.
Because Notre Dame has, a 28-point victory over Navy, right? A 25-point victory over Virginia. They need 28, 30 plus. Because if you go into the final, the final episode or the final ranking meeting, and you're like, Notre Dame's 11-1, they lost to Cincinnati. There's no FCS teams on their opponent, so that kind of negates the whole data point thing. But man, their average margin of victory the last month has been, whatever it's been. And then the lower scoring games of 10 against North Carolina and 16 against USC, you're talking about 6 games in a row where your average margin of victory is over 20. That's the kind of thing you need to impress the committee.
Yep.
So if you're not going to play good teams and you need to pound the bad teams you're playing, that's another way to impress the committee. Because you don't just have to beat a good team to impress the committee. If you go out there and just slaughter a team that's not good, then they're going to look at that. And obviously you'd like to pound a team that's pretty good, but you combine that with the fact you have a 28-point win over a Wisconsin team that's about, as hot as anybody in the country not named Georgia or Notre Dame, then those things are going to help you out. So let's dive into these matchups, Vince.